Good evening, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer. Hope you're doing very well tonight, and welcome to another Grim gameplay video where the deck tech takes as long as it's gonna take, okay? No more time limits. I'll take as long as I need to for the deck techs. That is a running joke. I can never stay to the self-imposed limit, so basically, if I know the deck well and there's a lot to talk about, maybe we'll have a nice long deck tech. In the cases where I don't know quite so much about the deck, it's the first time taking it for a spin, as it is tonight, we'll keep it a little bit briefer, okay? How about that? So we've got the deck tech of indeterminate but perfect length for the subject matter, right? And then we've got 3 leagues, and then at the end we will have a segment where we dissect the deck that we just played and talk about how to beat it with Midrange. So I have a huge roster of really cool decks I'm going to be bringing you in the form of Grim gameplays, many of which are requests from my Patreon supporters, but this is not one of them, my friends. This is one that I just want to do myself just for fun. I have admired this deck from afar for a little while now. This is Mono Red Prison, and you know, once upon a time, guys, I regarded this deck as kind of morally ambiguous, because the entire purpose of it is to stop the opponent from playing, basically, either completely outright by locking them out with Blood Moon, or stopping them from playing specific spells, many of which will cripple the deck if they're concentrated around a low curve, especially in Modern, like Chalice of the Void, or stop them from usually executing their only or their major win con by attacking, basically taking an entire phase of the game out of existence in the form of Ensnaring Bridge, and then you add Karn the Great Creator and the hate pieces that he can tutor up to it, and it is a deck that basically seeks to stop the opponent from playing partially or completely. And I used to regard this as morally ambiguous, but now I think it's kind of cool, frankly, relative to the value piles, relative to Fire Design. This deck has significant fail rates, and that in and of itself is endearing to me these days, when all of the most powerful decks in the format have a free 8th card in the form of Companion that itself generates card advantage, or all of their spells have draw a card stapled to it, and then you have all of the craziness going on post-Kaldheim on top of that, right? So a deck like this that I used to regard as a little bit of a bad influence on Modern, now I think it's a good influence. Now I'm like, turn 1, turn 2 Blood Moon? Sure, let's have it, right? So anyway, that's what Red Prison is, and I have cribbed this list. Forgive me, I don't remember the name offhand, but a pilot has a series of recent 3-in-1 preliminary events. This is that pilot's most recent list, so we'll just hit the high notes here. I've already covered the main lock pieces. Again, that is Chalice, Ensnaring Bridge, Karn the Great Creator and what he can tutor, and also we have 8 moon effects for Blood Moon for Magus of the Moon. We also have 20 lands, 9 of which are utility lands, so 11 beautiful Invasion Mountains, 3 copies of Ramanop Ruins for a little bit of reach, 2 copies of Zhalfirin Void for a little bit of card selection, and a full 4 copies of Legendary Land Gemstone Caverns to steal the play back from the opponent to power out those moons and chalices even earlier than we otherwise would when we're on the draw. And speaking of powering things out ahead of schedule, we have 4 Simian Guide, 4 Desperate Ritual, 1 Pyretic Ritual, and what else have we not mentioned? Well, there's the beef of the deck. There's the hate, there's the ramp, and then there is the beef. And the beef is 4 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster, probably our main win condition as far as actually ending the game is concerned, rather than locking the opponent out. We still have to actually kill them, Rabblemaster. If the opponent's locked out from doing anything, we'll do that in a hurry. Bone Crusher Giant is a nice 2-for-1. It is a removal that does not, unlike, for example, Lightning Bolt, get stopped by a Chalice on 1, and we all know how powerful the 2-for-1 potential of Bone Crusher Giant can be. Seasoned Pyromancer is another X1 that we all know and love, a very, very powerful card, so 3 each of those guys, and we have 3 copies of Chandra Torch of Defiance. Note that on this deck, one of the things that is appealing to me is we get to flex with a lot of really cool printings. Look at the promo. Chandra, by, I think, Therese Nielsen, although you can't see the name here. The promo Karn, I think, is really cool. We've got Stronghold and Snaring Bridge, and this Seb McKimming Chalice of the Void, among other things. Definitely a really stylish-looking deck. And when you're locking the opponent out, both players get to look at the cards for quite a long time, right? But anyway, Chandra, very, very powerful card as far as being a win condition or an advantage engine goes, as we all know. In the sideboard, we have another legion of goblins to call upon, as if the Rabble Master and his rabble were not enough, the Legion War Boss, bringing the more professional goblins, the more professionally trained soldiers to the battlefield. We can have 8 of these such effects post-side if we need to race the opponent, I suppose, is probably why you would want those. 2 copies of Abrade. Once again, it's good, efficient red interaction that notably is not a 1-drop and therefore will not get got by our own Chalice, most commonly being set to 1. And then we have, after those red spells, we have a nice little Karn tutor package with Trinisphere, Liquid Metal Coating, Walking Ballista, another cool promo, Ensnaring Bridge number 4, and Tormod's Crypt, obviously the time-shifted printing, and some really spicy ones, Dismember and Mindbreak Trap. Notably unable to hardcast Mindbreak Trap in this deck. Not even rocking a Monomorphos or something to try. We are simply planning to bring it in when we realistically expect to be able to cast it for free, giving us some unexpected stack interaction on top of everything else. So that's what the Red Prison decks look like these days. I am not certain why they don't play sweepers at the moment. Maybe they're just not as important as other effects, but that's the only thing that looks to me like I might expect to see it, and it's not in here. Otherwise, this looks like a really fun, really well-designed list. Let's have some fun. Let's take it for a spin. Almost forgot to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you above all to the greatest community in Magic, my patrons, my Discord members. They are one and the same. Thank you so much. The Grim gameplays have been pretty well received so far, and I hope this one is no different. Let's get into it. Hand looks like a keep to me. We can steal the play. I think I'm supposed to get rid of Ensnaring Bridge here because we have Rabble Master. We can turn 1 Moon or turn 1 Rabble Master depending on the matchup. Also because we have Karn in hand to eventually go get our bridge from the sideboard, right? So I think overall that's the plan. But note that I'm no expert with this deck. I'm just out here learning it and having fun. Blooming Marsh. Elvish Mystic. Whoa. All right, we're against Elves. Awesome. Ooh, Chalice on 1 seems really good against Elves. Seems better than anything else we were going to do. All right. Let's make blue. How do you like my Is It Chalice? That's a good draw. So as it turns out, Ensnaring Bridge would be a great one to have. Chalice plus Bridge would mean we wouldn't lose except to the strangest of progressions, right? Opponent's still definitely going to be able to do a lot here through the Chalice. It's not GG, especially if they play Cavern of Souls and they find that. We have another Gemstone Cavern, so we could ramp out a Karn. Losing a land and you losing a Simian Guide doesn't seem good. I think we just want to play our Rabble Master here. And Suicide our Goblin into the Dwynen's Elite, but, if they have to stay back with the Elite for a while, that could work to our advantage here. Definitely feeling punished for that lack of sweeper I identified in the deck tech. Again, I'm sure it's there for a reason. Oh, OP walks into the Chalice. Oops. They would have a big go-off turn with Heritage Druid plus the turn they had before. But they've got a Lord anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter quite so much. And they're going to ship in, huh? I normally love taking trades with Elves whenever possible. I think we're supposed to take that hit, because a Rabblemaster is so good. And because we know we have Magus of the Moon to block with. And if we can, like, get this Goblin army going and Chalice holds them off a bit, maybe, just maybe, we're getting somewhere, but no Archdruid? Azorious. Alright, now I'm going to take a trade with this 2-2. Ramanop Ruins. Time to go get a bridge. Try to stay alive. Goblins have to attack. Not very good on the defense now, are they? Opponent just didn't take a free kill on a Goblin with Azorious. And we're not dead as things stand, but the way they're sequencing, they might have another Lord or Shaman of the Pack. Alright, they got us. They got us good. Okay. Chalice on 1, not good enough against Elves. On turn 1, I see. I see how it is. Anyway, Abrade, Dismember. We got a lot of good cards. I've never really played a Karn the Great Creator deck. I am assuming when the cards are good, you're still supposed to leave them in the sideboard to go tutor them. Maybe that's a little less true if we only have 3 Karn instead of 4, but I'm still probably going to do that. Let's cut the Blood Moons. Magus isn't doing all that much for us either. Should we swap those out for Legion Warboss? Yeah, probably. I think this is fine. It'd be kind of funny to Mind Break Trap an Elf Ball turn, but let's not do that. Alright, I'm into it. I'm into the keep. We're going to race the Elves with a turn 1 Goblin Rabblemaster. Let's go. Kinda cool. Kinda cool. Alright. Would love to just have like any removal spell in hand. If we can just slow them down a little bit, we'll win the race. But LP doesn't have a turn 1 Dork, it's Heritage Druid. We have a Mountain A. The Mountain is not very exciting here. But this attack step is. Alright, we'll play this Elf here in Void out to get a little scry value. Ensnaring Bridge. Well, if we top that, we could end up pitching it to Spyro, but I guess that gives us the best options, right? Like, if it looks like we're going to lose the race, we can play the bridge. If not, we get something that we guaranteed turn into a token. So sure, we can top that. Like, if the opponent has a really insane turn 2 Elf Ball turn, maybe we just abort mission, play the bridge out. We'll see what they do. It all starts here with the Dwynen's Elite. Do they have that? You know they do. You know they do. Alright, OP, show us what the Elves can do. Realm Walker. Nice, you'll love to see it. Very cool. But not an insane elf ball turn this turn, so we're going to do our attacks first, see how the opponent blocks, see what happens here, and then decide what to do vis-a-vis Spyro versus Bridge. Opponent just blocking a goblin. Alright, yeah, it's really tough to say what to do here. This is beyond my experience level, frankly. Honestly, just like having put them to 6, that might be good enough, where we now are supposed to sit behind the bridge and try not to die, and we can get them with a little bit of reach from the Ramanop Ruins, maybe. Because, like, their board is big enough, they're going to be able to block well next turn. Alright, I'm going to play the bridge. It's a little incongruous with our start, but I'm trying to follow the signals of the hand as best as I can understand them. Opponent still gets a good swing in here, but they have to be careful about us killing them on the crackback. And it's whenever Goblin Rabblemaster attacks, so as far as I understand it, it can still attack under the bridge, as long as I have 2 cards in hand, and then grow. 2 cards or more in hand, and then grow after the fact with the triggered ability. We don't get to see the top of OP's deck with Realm Walker. Okay, OP getting in while the getting is good with the ones that can. And, you know, if that Realm Walker does go unanswered, they can see so much of the deck that Shaman of the Pax can finish us when we're both, even when we're both locked out by Bridge, but OP might be reconsidering the attacks. Oh, will we, won't we? Will we, won't we? They will. OP still tanking here, I guess. That means they've got some plays they could make, but exactly how shields down can they go with the blocks is what they're wondering. Again, we do have some reach with Ramanop Ruins. That could help. They're going for something here. The sense I get is it's another powerful 3-drop, like a Archdruid or something. It'd be a free roll if they could just make, like, 3 more bodies with this 3 mana, right? Then why wouldn't you? Except maybe if you're playing around Anger of the Gods. Okay, maybe not. A tough decision for opponent. Apologies, my friends. You guys know I like to keep the Grim gameplays nice and snappy, but when opponent's in the tank, they're in the tank. What are you going to do? So many great mountains we could have chosen for this project, but I wanted to do something from Invasion. I've never used this one. I thought it was fitting. Definitely a nice one. All right. Spyro time. A chalice. Okay. Little late for the chalice, but it could be helpful for sure. Our goblins have to basically suicide into their board. So I'm also going to attack with Rabblemaster. At least this way we get to kill an elf. I can't imagine they let it through, then they're just dead next turn to Ramanop Ruins, right? We are bluffing Bolt right now, making the opponent's blocking that little bit more complicated. Ultimately, they probably have to call our bluff here to a significant degree. Yep, that looks like about the correct block to me. Of course, maybe Prison Deck's just, it's uncommon enough to play Bolt that we're not actually really bluffing it. Whoa, what kind of instant speed effect? They have a beast within. Spicy, spicy. All right, I respect that. I definitely don't mind having access to that 3/3 body. Their last card is Shaman of the Pack. Got it. We are not dead. So I guess they just stay back here. The only card they have a quote-unquote good attack is Realm Walker. Oh, Dwynen's Elite, forcing a trade with the Beast. I think I'll take that trade. I understand why they make that attack. I think it's a fine one, but I'll also make the trade. Oh my goodness. Just no love here from the top of the deck. I don't think we're supposed to do anything here. I don't think Chalice does enough because they have a resolved Clan Caller, so even if we lock out whatever their top deck would be, and as it turns out, it's just a dead land anyway, that is kind of irrelevant, assuming they play more than one Clan Caller in their deck. Oh, Elvish Archdruid. Okay. Realm Walker going to town here. That seems good. This is another good attack from the opponent because we can't double block and kill anything. So I'm just going to chump with the Spyro here. And leave the Goblin. And then on the end step, we'll make the tokens. Desperate Ritual. No love from the top, eh? Alrighty, we're pretty dead. But we'll try to stay alive, hit him with the ruins, and see what we can top deck. I guess the problem is we're just not staying alive. Any hit is lethal. Okay, they send with everything. That's the game. Routinely stomped here. Roundly stomped, I mean, by Elves. And without a sweeper, I guess that's relatively expected. They won through the Chalice. They won through a lot. Good stuff. I don't hate to see that at all. Alright, we got a turn 1 Magus of the Moon. I think that's gonna be our play here. It's gonna be our path to victory. Notably, cannot even get forced. Right? Definitely pretty sweet. Alright. Let's see if opponent cares. With a hand like that, you've just got to go for it as far as I can tell. Tangled Veil, so some kind of MDFC action going on over there. And we have drawn the third land, which seems pretty good. I don't know that we'll even want or need Ensnaring Bridge particularly, but so far OP seems locked out. And there's a Blood Moon. I'm just going to play that. Double down, right? Keep emptying our hand in case we need the bridge, but really we want to go on the Karn the Great Creator plan. So drawing a land would be wonderful, or drawing a clock. Rabblemaster being the prime consideration there, but I'd certainly take like a Spyro to make a body and keep digging. Okay, OP on their Sultai plan has found themselves pivoting to some mono-red action. I don't know if I'm supposed to recognize this. Tangled Veil, Botanical Sanctum, and Nurturing Peatland. I was just thinking, is it Neoform? And then I guess it is. So they just cast Allosaurus Rider to stop the beats. And we draw a Gemstone Caverns. So we're going to ditch the old one. Choose one to keep. Yep, there it is. Okay. What are we supposed to even get here? I didn't even really think that one through too much. Gotta get something here. I don't think ticking up makes a ton of sense. But our hate here isn't that good. Trinisphere is kinda good. I'll get Trinisphere. It doesn't really help us beat the Allosaurus Rider. But hopefully it will stop them from doing virtually anything else. And then we can play the bridge when we need to. In order to stay alive, and eventually they'll be locked out by the Trinisphere and the Moon. And we can find some way to win. Most likely with this Chandra, right? I'll just cast the bridge now, I suppose. Will this hate be sufficient? That's a lot of hate. Goblin Rabblemaster, huh? I think I'm just going to stomp the opponent here. Chalice of the Void. That is interesting. Chalice on 0, shutting off probably some more of their stuff, right? I'm just going to play a Bone Crusher here to get a bigger body down in case the turn them all sideways plan to finish them off becomes relevant. Another Chalice, huh? We cast a Chalice on 0. That is so interesting, the adjust mechanic here. I'm in for it. Okay, this is one of the strangest games I've ever played. By far. But now we've got a way to start ending the game, and that's the Chandra alts. And frankly, the Chandra +1s along the way to the ult. So now we're cooking. Alright, this is relatively heterodox as far as our progression is concerned, but we will take it, right? I'll say no to this. We'll just deal another 2, I guess. That way we deal another 2 next turn with our +1, and then the following turn emblem into a spell is lethal. OP discarding to hand size. See Beyond. Okay. Not going to worry about whatever that is quite yet. Alright, no reason not to cast a Spyro. Well, yes, there is. I'm going to cast a Rabble Master. The reason not to cast a Spyro is that we could loot away 2 spells and just flood and not have anything to kill the opponent with despite Chandra's emblem. Next turn, right? We'd have to have 3 lands, runner off the top, but there's no reason to risk that as far as I can tell. See Beyond is definitely a spicy one in here I've not seen. I haven't really seen Neoform since just about since the MDFC cards came out, so I haven't really seen Tangled Veil in there either. Their Allosaurus Rider is big, that much is for sure. It's cool they could hardcast it, or they could cheat it out rather, not hardcast it, despite the moon. OP responding to our alts here. To gain 7 life with Nourishing Shoal. Okay, fair enough. The game goes on, I guess. Alright, we can attack and then kill them second main with another Blood Moon. As long as one of these gets through and they don't have another Nourishing Shoal, I guess I'll risk it. Losing Magus is a little scary. Maybe we don't even need to attack with Magus, we just get 1 damage across. They need to beat the Magus and 2 Blood Moons, right? But still, might as well not risk it. Got him. Wow, that was cool. Okay. Cool for us, probably frustrating for the opponent, but this is a horrible matchup, I have to assume, and we did get there on the back of Blood Moon, basically. So, I'm assuming Mind Break Trap is live enough some of the time that we're supposed to play it. We want our fastest clock possible as well. Ensnaring Bridge actually saved our bacon there, but we probably don't really want the card too much. They're definitely going to combo off a lot of the time. I think we'll maybe trim to probably get rid of the Bone Crushers, even though they're like an okay clock. Maybe they're better than Spyro to a decent degree. Maybe we leave one of each in. I'm going to cut all the bridges. We can still tutor one with Karn if we really need to. I don't know how correct this is. Let's do it. We got Mind Break Trap in the opener. Let's go. Oh, man. It'll just be a moral victory if we get to counter something. That'll be really funny. Yeah, I'll keep it. We get to power out some real stuff here. We get to steal the play with Gemstone Caverns, bottom a redundant Karn. Seems like a good keep to me. Good enough. Obviously, we'd want a Moon Effect if we could sculpt our hand. That seems really awesome, but I guess Chalice is a card we really want to. I'm assuming a relatively normal Neoform list. I probably should just look up a list here while we're waiting. But yeah, let's take that play. Okay, Desperate Ritual into Rabble Master. Seems good. Seems like the best thing we got. Whoa, opponent with no second land drop. Alright, us making a land drop so we can make Karn next turn. Still just wish we had a Moon Effect to play here, right? But, you know, I bet opponent kept a hand with an answer to Blood Moon Effect. Still no second land drop. Whoa. It must be really close to going off, too. Alrighty. I guess there's nothing Karn really gets this turn that helps us, so let's just go to attacks first, see what happens. Okay, I mean, I don't see any need to play Ritual here. I guess we can get Trinisphere again. Liquimetal coating for their only land seems also good. Sure, let's get little Liquimetal coating, actually. I mean, the opponent's just dead, right? They could stay alive with Nourishing Shoal, though, so coating or Trinisphere are probably both good enough to win as long as they, A, are not just straight up dead, and B, can live to also, or can start, in theory, assembling something after they're not dead this turn. But they're going to go Summoner's Pact into Wild Canter, and we've got the Mindbreak Trap ready. Will it be able to beat what they're doing? We're going to find out. Alright, are we supposed to trap the Pact here? We're probably supposed to trap the Allosaurus Rider that they go get. It's just more value positive to make them exile first. Forgive me, I've never played Neoform, I've never also cast a Mindbreak Trap, and I've never played Mono Red Prison before, so I'm really far out of my element. But let's go, Mindbreak Trap you. Is this going to be good enough? And Mindbreak Trap, says OP in all caps. LOL GG, says OP. I guess that is good enough. Oh, man. Oh, man. Policing the combo decks with a casual Mindbreak Trap in our Mono Red Prison. Alright, this is a keep. We're against a Lurrus deck, so all of our effects are potentially good. Depending on what they're playing, obviously, but you expect most Lurrus decks to be a little soft to Ensnaring Bridge. Soft in a more high variance way, you know, soft sometimes to a Magus effect, maybe sometimes not so much. It all depends on what the opponent's up to. Seachrome Coast into Giver of Runes, that's not something you see every day, right? So in theory, Magus is kind of locking them out now of a blue-white progression. We've also have drawn Blood Moon. As much as we want to get a Chandra down early, I think the thing to do here is try for the Moon. And honestly, it might as well be Blood Moon. You know, a Giver of Runes deck that much less likely to be able to remove it. So let's go for the cheese here. Lock them out. They could be an Ether Vial deck. They could just have a basic land ready to go. You know, this definitely isn't guaranteed. But I think it follows the signals of our hand most closely. So far, they're still locked with the Field of Ruin as the turn. This is the land for turn. So now we just want to draw lands of our own, right? Runner, runner, land, we will be all set. We go Magus into Chandra, into Ensnaring Bridge. Probably can't lose from there. This is all assuming the opponent just does nothing, which that's the whole point of our Gemstone Caverns into Blood Moon play. But we brick on an uncastable, so we're doing nothing as well. Blue-white with Giver and with Lurrus. I guess it is probably a blue-white Hate Bear style deck. And Ghost Quarter. Yeah, definitely looking like blue-white taxes. There's a mountain. Let's go. Alright. Rabblemaster better than Moon here, I suppose. On the whole. Give the opponent bit of action here. They'll scoop to that, seeing a win condition. Very nice. Okay, totally locked out by Blood Moon. It does happen. So we'll take our removal, thank you very much. Might actually side a little bit away from Moon effects on the draw. Everything else is probably pretty good. I think I'll do that. Maybe split the Blood Moons and the Maguses. Maybe even get a couple War Bosses in there and trim the Moon effects even more. Obviously, they were a knockout there, but opponent will know about them. And they have Ghost Quarters, and they'll be on the play. They might have Ether Vial, too. I'm not sure if this hand is fast enough to keep, but we did kind of side away from some of the keys here on the draw, so I guess I'm going to keep this hand. It's packed with value. It's got 2 Chandras, so if we can, like, curve out early. But on the other hand, it has no removal. Opponent opens on a basic land, feeling justified for our, Whoa, we draw Simian Guide? Hold up. Hold up. Do we want to choose out a turn 1 Rabblemaster or a turn 2 Chandra? Probably a turn 2 Chandra. Let's hope they don't play another creature, though. If they do, we'll be a bit punished. But let's hope they don't have a 2-drop here. The nightmare is that they have Thalia. No, that's what they have. To be fair, Thalia is pretty good against Rabblemaster too, right? Alright, opponent, just attack. Just attack us, no? Not that we could get Chandra out anyway. Oh, there's a Bone Crusher Giant. This is something. This is a really nice progression from the opponent, though. Another matchup that makes me wish we had a sweeper, right? Okay, OP tapping out for something. I would not know whether or not necessarily to play around Spell Queller under some circumstances in a deck like this. Anyway, opponent going for a Smuggler's Copter that is taxed. It's not the worst for us, right? So let's just take a kill here on the only thing we can kill, which is Giver. And Thalia's a beating here. I don't even know. I just kind of want to draw lands, right? We don't. Alright, we're locked out by Thalia. Missing the land drop 3 turns in a row. Not a good recipe when you're on the draw against a Thalion curve now, is it? OP curving out. Some basics, some GQs, a backup Giver, and I think that pretty much seals our fate. Like, they could be flooded and they could continue flooding from here, but it's really unlikely, especially with that Copter that they flood. So I think they just kind of have us. It's going to be really hard to come back from the taxation plus aggression, given our stumbling. Maybe we get a little more info out of their deck with the Looter Scooter triggers here, and I'll certainly take at least another draw step, but if we break on a land, we're probably just supposed to scoop. Confounding Conundrum. Whoa, there's a reason to play blue, I guess. Really going ham with some of the Ghost Quarter Field of Ruin effects, I guess, in that type of situation. We draw Chalice. Alright, I'll scoop to this. Yeah, definitely can scoop to that. Alright, well, we learn a little bit more, but ultimately, I don't think we want to really change what we're doing. We could get a little more moon happy on the play at the expense of these war bosses. I think I'm down to bring 1 back. Call that about good. The moons could definitely be relatively dead, like they were in that progression, right? Alright. I'm going to keep it. It's got plenty of removal. It doesn't cheese anything out, but I think that's okay in this matchup on the play. Let's get a turn 1 Scry. Mountain. We do need second red land. I'm going to top that, and if we end up flooding, then Spyro at least can save us, right? But really, we're going to want to just stomp and abrade their early plays. And then stick our X for 1 effects. Glacial Fortress. Interesting. Doesn't seem that great in a Seachrome Coast Ghost Quarter Field of Ruin build, if I'm being honest. But what do I know? I have never played Blue-White Taxes. Azorious Taxes, if you will. Might just go for a Thalia here, which even if we can kill it, which we can, will tempo us out. Unsettled Mariner is going to do the same thing. Very annoying. Another Gemstone Caverns, also very annoying. I think I'm just going to stomp this guy main phase. Yes. Main reason I do that is because of Spell Queller, but frankly, one of the advantages to playing a deck like Blue-White Taxes is that you don't know. You don't know exactly what they're going to be on, right? Alright, we draw another Bone Crusher Giant. That's decent. That gives us incentive to just pass and hold up our effects here. Alternatively, we could get a little more proactive, play out a Rabblemaster, and then try to clock them with double removal next turn. Yeah, let's go for the Rabbler here. Sometimes you do really miss playing Lightning Bolt, though, which we don't because we're a Chalice deck, but if we had a Bolt in some of these progressions or against Elves, obviously it's just really nice. Instead of getting our Goblin eaten by the Giver, we'd get to Bolt the Giver, for example. Honestly, you know, maybe playing Bone Crusher Giant was better there. I could buy that. Oh, geez, Unsettled Mariner and Giver of Runes. Quite the combo here. Another Spyro. And they're going to upkeep Path. Once again, I feel it's better to just main phase this effect. And if opponent doesn't bother responding here... Okay, yes, we'll pay. Opponent doesn't bother responding because they don't think we have anything else, then we can play another Gemstone Caverns. Oh no, we still can't, because that will still tax us, right? So, this is fine. We won't... We'll hang on to the Caverns as a way to force through action on a different turn, or as a loot away to Spyro effect. Or card, wow. Not everything is effect, Grim. Not everything is an effect. Confounding Conundrum. Also very good with Path to Exile. Definitely an interesting tax card, as we have seen here. Burrington Forge Tender. Oh, so much hate. So much hate for us. Ramanop Ruins, eh? Maybe we just cast 2 Bone Crushers this turn. I can buy that. Alternatively, we could lead on a Spyro and pitch both of these lands. I could buy that as well. You know what? Maybe I'm going to lead on a Spyro just because it seems like we're going to be looting one of them away if we don't right now. I still want to hang on to this Abrade, though, despite the tax and the Forge Tender. Like, we have to fight through this stuff eventually. The Double Bone Crusher was interesting, though. Snaring Bridge, Karn the Great Creator. So we're a bit punished because we don't draw a land in those two, so we can't double spell. I really wanted to double spell. That's pretty important when you're being taxed. And that was one reason Double Bone Crusher is fine. That said, we did get some interesting cards here. Can the opponent really beat an Ensnaring Bridge? I'm not certain. We're definitely going to want to play a trading resources game until such time as we start really losing on the board. Opponent's seeing a lot of cards with these conundrums, and them doubling up could be really ugly for us if they find cards that synergize with it. Which is why one reason it hurts to dirtle this much. Desperate Ritual. I don't even know what I'd really want to get with Karn here. We could play their land destruction game against them with Liquimetal Coating. That's kind of spicy. Yeah, maybe we're just supposed to do that. Play Karn, go get a coating, see if they can beat it. Ritual not helping us out. Oh, well, Ritual can cast Coating. But we cannot activate it this turn. Because this guy is wrecking us. If I had sequenced differently. So we'll just do nothing here. That's kind of I probably missequenced there. We should have ritualed first, right? If we wanted to do that. Then again, we're still not able to pay for the Mariner tax this turn anyway. So we do tempo ourselves out that little bit more. We're already getting tempoed out. But we're giving the opponent a lot to think about. Winds of Abandon. Thought they might have that, or a path style effect. Thankfully, we didn't have a land enter the battlefield yet, so we don't get tempoed out by the Confounding Conundrum. That said, opponent can still answer Karn, making our Liquimetal Coating bad, but overall, in a vacuum, that's still a fine trade for us. We have other Karns in the deck, after all. Otherwise, Coating can be Spyro fuel, and that's fine too. Our first Spyro got us a ton of value. There's a Chalice of the Void. Very interesting. There's still no obvious play here. We probably want to, at last, try to abrade that, but then again, it's just like Burnt and Forge Tender. We'll just beat it. So what if we... I'm going to go for another Spyro. At this point, we're going to play more of a value game. I think I'm going to pitch Desperate Ritual and probably just... let's pitch the Liquimetal Coating. If we draw another Karn, I'll be sad, but we don't. We draw Blood Moon. All right, let's just moon them out. They don't have any basics. This has been a long time coming. Let's go for this. I was getting ready to see how good a Chalice on 1 would be from here. But that's probably pretty good, right? All 3 of these games playing out very, very differently, by the way. Definitely kind of cool, depending on where you're sitting, I guess. Phyrexia and Revoker. I thought maybe they were about to put Lurrus into hand. But they got plays. They got plays even when getting mooned out. Phyrexia and Revoker, what do you name here? Chandra. Yeah, that's a great name. That's a great name, honestly. Alright, let's start shipping in with... We actually don't have good attacks this turn. Let's play some Bone Crushers. I think I'm going to play a Chalice on 1, because that's going to shut off some of their plays if they find a single basic land. And then we'll start the big beats. Magus of the Moon. I'll take it. That's probably the correct attack. Okay, the double block, I guess we're supposed to kill Revoker. Oh no, we get to kill them both, but we'll order it that way. See what OP does here. Will they sack Forge Tender? No, they'll take the trade. Got it. And now Magus gets to go Grey Ogre mode. I don't know if that was the right block from OP. They are in a spot, though. That's the game. Well, I think I cut off my recording at the end a tad early there. I was about to say they're in a spot, or I did say they're in a spot, Blood Moon OP, and I also speculated on whether or not that was the exact correct block, but as it turns out, OP was pretty locked out. The beats were too strong. Bone Crusher Giant, amazing there. You might look at a list like this and say, I understand that Rabblemaster is the best clock a deck like this can muster. Spyro is a way to loot away bad cards and knit the whole deck together, and is just almost too powerful not to play in most red decks that want to go even medium speed, right? To say nothing of wanting to grind. Maybe you look at the list and say Bone Crusher Giant is it's a good card, but it might be a little bit off. It's just so live in so many situations. You saw it there. Like, we had a lot going our way, but really we lacked the muscle to get over the finish line without Bone Crusher Giant, and don't forget how good those stomps were early on. As removal, you've got to have some amount of interaction, too, to supplement your hate. Again, especially if you're not playing a sweeper effect. So, my very, very brief thoughts as a total amateur. This was my first run out with Mono Red Prison. I played 1 or 2 games the night before this that I rented it, and then he played the games he saw here plus a couple others. So that is not much experience, but I don't know exactly how hyped I am about the 4 Legion War Boss on the side, having played it. I could see a couple, and certainly there are some situations where they'll win you the game. But I think partially they're there on their own merit for their own purposes, and also partially the lack of a sweeper effect is due to their presence. And if you add all that together, I don't know if that at first blush it is how I would configure the deck. Maybe it's my mid-range bias kicking in. I want to have good answers to everything, a well-rounded sideboard. I might be more inclined to play Anger of the Gods. Or if a sweeper is good main deck, maybe you look into a card like Sweltering Suns. In any case, take that for what it's worth. I have just started playing Mono Red Prison, and I didn't read up on it or anything, so just my first impressions. Those can be valuable from a new perspective, though, right? In any case, these were some interesting games. We got Elf Balled. I, as an Elf fan, was happy to see the Elves' resilience in the face of some decent stuff. You know, we had a little removal, I think, if I recall. We definitely had an early Chalice one game. We had a decent amount of things going on, but the Elves managed to find a way over the line to annoy us. And we also, and that's another matchup, of course, that could be improved by a sweeper. So maybe I'm also having my analysis here a little bit colored by our experience. But then you have to say that aside from a couple cards lining up, most of the time, Mono Red Prison is very cold to combo decks, right? As long as you're not totally hosing them, totally locking them out, which, granted, we did with a turn 1 Moon effect in Game 1, if I'm remembering correctly. But generally speaking, you know, red decks don't interact on the stack. Red decks are playing, the Red Prison is playing like Ensnaring Bridge, which doesn't matter against a lot of combo. But in this case, we locked him out, we hated him out in a couple different ways. We presented an okay clock, but really we went a little slower. We didn't win a race, strictly speaking. But we put some pressure on, we put some hate on, and then Mind Break Trap, sending the Neoform player back into the ether. OP was a good sport about it. That was really spicy. One of the things, I've been, flirting around the idea of playing this deck for a while, and I said, well, maybe I'll look at some lists. And this was the second list I looked at, I think, and I saw Mind Break Trap in the side and said, okay, that's just too cool, I gotta do it. So glad we got a good use case out of it here. And then the third match against Blue-White Taxes was a good old grind fest. Definitely a fun back and forth. As I said at the time, the 3 different games played out very differently, showing the versatility of this deck in terms of how it plays out, what it can do, and what can be done against it. So let's talk about that. We're here to talk about how to beat it with mid-range. If you're on a traditional mid-range deck, you probably won't have that many sideboard cards for it. One of the big secrets about BGX is that most of your main deck cards are already good. They will struggle to remove a resolved Tarmogoyf under most circumstances, especially if you look at this list. There's not really any graveyard hate. Karn can tutor an Ensnaring Bridge. One-sided wipe, that's not even good. BGX fills the graveyard so well on both sides that BGX itself plays Nile Spellbomb, happily wiping one side to deny the opponent resources and continuing to fuel their Goyfs out of their own side of the graveyard. So Tormod's Crypt's not even as good as that because it doesn't even cantrip. So definitely an early Goyf can be very, very difficult for the red deck to remove. So here is something to really think about. Always be thinking about Ensnaring Bridge as the BGX player. On the one hand, we have the temptation to say, Ensnaring Bridge decks aren't that bad because we can discard out the bridge. It's not like we have no answers to it. More importantly, if it hits the field, we can remove it with all of our BGX removal spells, Decay, Trophy, Pulse, etc. Kolaghan's Command, a big one here if you happen to be on Junder Rakdos. But here is the problem: they can still top deck it, and that can still hold you off long enough to lose the game, especially now with Karn the Great Creator. Before, you would have games going into into the teens, into the 20s sometimes, as players try to draw a way to beat your big board. Maybe they're trying to find and then subsequently Alta Chandra or something. You're trying to find an out to a resolved bridge. Karn being able to tutor other things, including liquid metal coating you out of the game, is definitely something that has changed the texture of bridge stalemates, if you ask me. And it is therefore a little less likely that we'll win a bridge stalemate. So even though one of the reasons the matchup is fine is, again, because we have answers to this card, and because we can take over the game without attacking with planeswalkers and so forth, just like the red deck can, part of the reason this deck is constructed the way it is because planeswalkers generate that repeated value and become an eventual win con. Well, our planeswalkers on midrange can do the same thing. That said, don't sleep on the bridge. If you lose to this deck and you didn't get cheesed out by a turn 1 moon, or like a really solid, good curve out from the opponent in the type of way that midrange decks curve out with a Chandra at the top, it will probably be due to Ensnaring Bridge. Chalice of the Void, I have kind of the same perspective, but the opposite conclusion on, if that makes sense. Let me elaborate. So just like Bridge, we have answers to it. We can play around it by taking it out of hand, or by knowing that it's in hand and choosing to sequence in certain ways. If it resolves, we even have lots of outs to that. Most often, these decks are designed to get Chalice out on 1. Even if they know that mid-range decks aren't necessarily folding to Chalice on 1, it'll still be something that they play, because if you're disrupting a little bit and, they're fearful for more discard, Liliana, they're just going to try to empty out the hand. So Chalice on 1 is not that big of a problem. Even if it's on 2, it can be a problem early, but even that is beaten by Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay can't be countered, right? Remember that. And of course, 3 drops like Kolaghan's Command and, wow, what am I thinking of? Maelstrom Pulse still answer that as well. So, Chalice of the Void, there will be games. You play enough Magic, there will be games where a Chalice that quote-unquote should not beat you does. Even if you're on a mid-range deck that has a widely variant curve, shouldn't be that soft to Chalice on 1. Every now and then you're going to draw all your 1-drop spells, opponent's going to curve out brilliantly. The Chalice is going to beat you, right? The Chalice is going to be what stops you from being competitive. That said, I do not think this card is very good against us. A significant but not total amount of the time, not guaranteed, it will come out against us. And in my amateur assessment, again, not a mono-red prison player, I would imagine that number 1, that's dependent on what the opponent has to bring in, and number 2, given number 1, that is less likely than it used to be, because gone are the days where they have a true 15-card sideboard, and they're going to have some grindy cards in there for mid-range, and some other cards for other matchups that might also line up against mid-range. That's not really the case anymore. You look at the sideboard, because 1/3 of the sideboard, at least, is taken up by a Karn tutor package, and then, especially with Modern the way it is now, they have to have very specific hate for very specific purposes, and if they're not packing that hate, they might just be, like this list is, playing more racing cards. That very narrow hate, or the fragile but snowbally Race You card, and none of that's very good against midrange. Arguably, the best card in this list against midrange is a Braid or possibly Dismember, depending on your exact midrange build and what they've seen and what they think you might have. Neither of these cards are a nightmare for us, okay? You're going to 1-for-1 our threat. That's the type of game we like to play. We still have the edge and card quality if everybody is trading 1-for-1, as long as we don't get cheesed out. So one other thing to remember is try to get your Goyf to survive the Braids and the Dismembers when possible, with your sequencing in respect to fetch lands and getting the right types in the graveyard and so forth. Just keep an eye on that. You also do have to respect the turn 2 Rabble Masters. That is another reason why conservative sideboarding is okay. You might be tempted to say that, like, we can handle the Rabble Masters and the Spyros and the Giants. We're really going to lose to the Bridge or to the Blood Moon or maybe to the Planeswalkers. It's still okay to keep, like, even if you're on a rock. I mean, if you're on Jund, it's definitely okay to keep your bolts in. They're still castable under Moon, etc., etc. You might want to hedge away from Chalice on 1, but other than that, they're fine to keep in. But even on rock, you shouldn't regard Fatal Push as a dead card. Maybe siding 1 out is fine, maybe 1 to 2 even is fine if you feel you have enough to do, but ultimately, the Fatal Push is a live card. It's definitely okay. There will even be a very high rate of hardcast Simian guides going Grey Ogre mode. You gotta be able to answer the Grey Ogre, guys. What more do you need to know? Grey Ogre OP, everybody. Everybody knows that. Other than that, it pays to be on top of the meta. You can stay familiar with what the typical Karn wish board looks like, so you're well prepared for that. All of these cards can definitely play against us. It is true that none of them hate us out that hard. But if we're stuck on a one-lander, they can lock us out with Trinisphere. If they are able to stick a card and they think he's going to go unchecked, Liquid Metal Coating will be a deterministic way to get us out of the game. Walking Ballista is great in late games or against must-remove small targets like maybe a Dark Confidant. Ensnaring Bridge, I've talked about that. This is their 4th copy. They have 6 virtual copies with this structure, by the way, 3 main deck, and then 3 Karns, each of which can tutor the 4th. And then Tormod's Crypt, again, you probably won't see it, but if the graveyard is really stacked on one side and there's a couple huge goyfs, maybe, just maybe. Other than that, Seasoned Pyromancer is a very high-level discard target. Just because they are a prison deck, do not feel obligated into only respecting the hate pieces, and do not get trapped into assuming you'll be able to outgrind them as long as you don't get hated out. Seasoned Pyromancer is a hell of a card. It is a powerful grinding engine in its own right, and for that matter, can dig them into more hate pieces if you over-prioritize those at the expense of taking away a Spyro. But ultimately, guys, you do want to stick to the plan. The traditional BGX mid-range plan does line up very well against Mono Red Prison. Our card quality is high. The green threat of Tarmogoyf in particular is pretty nice. Obviously, anything that can remove enchantments and or artifacts is a nice potential sideboard card. And in general, when you're trimming around the edges, you want to realize what things are maybe a little bit too greedy to accommodate. If you can tell that they're on an 8-moon list like this, and they're also playing Stomps, in addition to everything else, Scavenging Ooze is not probably the greatest card. Don't get me wrong, there are some situations where a lot of trading has happened, and a late-game Scooze, whether it be top decked or the last card in your hand, can do a really good Tarmogoyf impression. But ultimately, it's a lot more of a mana investment. It is going to be shut off or gated at least hard by Blood Moon. It's more vulnerable to removal, so that's the type of thing. You can trim around the edges, but for a similar card to think of, Dark Confidant and Hex Drinker. Those are both way better than Scavenging Ooze because they are not gated by Blood Moon. Bob is going to do his thing repeatedly with no mana investment, and Hex Drinker can actually be a great answer to a Blood Moon stall, because all you need is a single forest to cast it, or maybe it's even down before the Blood Moon hits the battlefield, and then all those useless mountains are just pumping up the snake, right? So definitely a lot to think about, but you do want to trim around the edges. Maybe a Fatal Push is a good place to start, a Scavenging Ooze, and then kind of take it from there. It's going to depend really on your sideboard, though, more than anything else. So if you have any more specific questions on how to approach a certain scenario or other things you want to bring up as far as mid-range versus Mono Red Prison goes, that is what the comment section is for. Please let me know what you thought about this video if you have any questions like that and anything else. The other thing to mention, just to kind of bring this discussion at the end full circle, is that if Mono Red Prison is seeing a spike in the meta, it's probably because it has the ability to play a lot of different narrow hate cards that police the format that line up really well. And that is why, like I said in the beginning, I no longer regard this deck as a little morally ambiguous, right? I think this is basically a good guy deck like most crazy combo or brutal fire pile decks are. Times have changed. Mono Red Prowess is now our prowess. That too. Mono Red Prison is now our ally as opposed to our enemy, right? But this is more good news for mid-range because if the Red Prison deck is seeing a lot of play, again, it's probably because they have a lot of good hate cards, and the hate cards aren't necessarily designed to cripple mid-range. We can punch a hole in that game plan. We can beat them with card quality. So there you go, my friends. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. We had a wide variety of gameplay in just 3 short matches, and it was a fun time, as the Grim gameplays tend to be, and I hope to see you for the next one. Take it easy, and I will talk to you soon.